Now that we have a good understanding of the basic design tools in SketchUp, as well as some of the modifications and 3D tools, we can begin massing a home. Before we get into the details of drawing up doors and windows and floors and things like that, we need to first measure our location. There's a couple tips and tricks that I like to share when you're measuring. That way it makes it a little bit easier for when you're importing the information into SketchUp. So I'm just going to open up Preview. And this is a scan of the floor plan that I have for my house. I live in South Philadelphia. It's a typical row house in South Philly. The width of the house is anywhere from 12 to 16 to 20 feet wide. And then they go back about 60 feet. Typically, they're 2 to 3 stories tall. And they have your basic living room, your dining room, and then your kitchen on the first floor. And you have your staircase going up to your bedrooms and the down staircase going down to the basement. Now, just to give you a little sense of the history of this house, it was built in 1905, maybe even earlier. You come into your locked foyer, you have your fireplace and your central living room. And then this area used to be the dining room, and this back area used to be the kitchen. And what they did over years is add an addition on for the small kitchen, made this the dining room, and then really just opened up the living room. I think the ceiling heights are 11 feet, maybe 10 feet, and then they get much shorter back here. I think they're 8. So to measure this, there's really a couple ways that you can do it. I'm sort of old school, so I really like to take graph paper and just measure it out to really just kind of space plan and give up all the measurements of the space. Depending on how detailed you want to be, you can really get a lot of detailed and defined measurements. For the most part, I was just rounding everything to a quarter or a half an inch because I'm not too concerned about that level of detail. In certain areas, like the kitchen later on, those measurements we may need to redo and adjust to get an even higher precise measurement. Specifically with the measurements of where the refrigerator and the oven and the sink and the dishwasher go, because it is such a small defined area here. I want to make sure the items or appliances that I pick actually can fit in the house, which is a common challenge in these older homes. So to begin measuring this, I really just started in a corner that I knew was the easiest, and that was this corner here. So all my measurements start from this corner. So when we're in SketchUp, we're going to start from that corner as well and just retrace our steps. So you'll notice from this measurement here, I measured the overall distance of the wall, measured the openings for the window, measured this wall here, the door opening, measured the fireplace, the mantle that comes out here, as well as the hearth that comes out another 18 inches, measured the wall. Here you have a door into a powder room, and then there's a door here into the coat closet, of which I'm not really concerned about the dimensioning inside there. I really just kind of want to get the rough cut out of the hallway here. You have the staircase around here that then opens up. There's a railing here that we'll build that goes down into the basement. In this room here, you have your dining room. You have then a thick wall, because this used to be the original exterior wall of the house. Then you have a narrow opening that goes into the kitchen here. In the kitchen, the appliances and countertops are all on these two walls. You have a window, and on this wall, because it was a lot of information going on, what I like to do is usually just draw elevations if I need the specifics. So this wall here, looking at it in elevation, the door is actually up 5 inches. So basically up from the baseboard. Then you have the finished ceiling height. Finish line there is 86.5 inches. The door height hits at 82 inches. The window, 82.5. The bottom of the window or the base of the window hits at 48 inches. And the door is 32 inches wide. So what I do then here is after I have all my measurements, and you may have to take more, this really is just to get the rough cut dimensions. And then if you need to go back further, of which we may need to for the staircase as well as for in the kitchen, you really want to get the rough dimensions down first. That way you can really build the exterior walls up of the house and then allow it to really kind of build from there. In our next session, we're going to start to use the line tool and trace some of the measurements that we wrote down here in plan. Now, you're more than welcome to copy the existing plan, but if you'd like to measure and model out your own home or your own apartment or condo, wherever you live, certainly the same principles apply. Use this as a template, as a basis to follow along, but you can, of course, use your own example because I'm sure you'll fall into the same types of challenges, especially with creating the fireplace and staircase and walls and windows that are typical in any home construction. All right, now that we have everything measured, we can now start drawing the house up. And this is really the fun part of SketchUp and where it's very intuitive and very simple and easy to just mass up a building and start to see this thing come to life. You'll notice I have the scan up here on the right. We're just going to use this to kind of refer to as we're drawing. You could have it up here on your screen, or you could have the printed out version of it in front of your computer. So with the measurements here, let's start with the line tool. And we're going to start at the origin point. That's our 0, 0 point. It's usually a good spot to start. And it's very simple to just draw this out. We're just going to use the line tool. Remember, click and release. Don't click and drag. We're just going to click and release to start our point. First line, we're going to draw down 53 inches. Next line over, 11 inches. Down in the green axis, 5 feet. Let's pan. So remember, pan is pushing in on the middle mouse and holding down Shift. Let's come back 11 inches, then down 17 feet. And that sort of goes off the model space. So let's zoom out, go over 92.25 inches. If you look in the value control box, I can either type in 92.25 or I can type in 92 space 1-4. That'll give me the same distance. Let's go down 31.5 over 38.5. Just zooming down a little bit there. For the dining room, let's go down 13 feet 3 inches. Again, we'll pan and zoom. We have 5 inches, 11.75. 5 inches again. Then back down 100.5 inches. The width here is 117.5. We go up 101.5. And there is actually a little bit of a difference in the baseboards here. And I probably wouldn't have wrote that down. I would have just rounded this number up. But because this is the kitchen and it's such a small area, and later in the chapters, we're going to focus on creating the cabinets and putting in appliances, it's really crucial that we have that measurement exact because I want to make sure the appliances that I want are actually going to fit in there. Let's put this again at 101.5. And this opening here at 82.25. Back up 11.75. This line over, we could either type in 82.25, or remember, we can infer. Just going to infer to that edge, bring that up, pan and zoom, and I'm going to infer to this top edge. Last but not least, let's close out that endpoint to create our surface. Now we can also create the foyer here. We're going to do this a little bit of a different way. Instead of using the line tool, we're going to use a tape measure tool. So T is a keyboard shortcut, and we're going to draw ourselves a guide. You see the tape measure tool, make sure you press Option or Control on a PC. That's going to bring up that little plus sign. That little plus sign will create the guide that we need. If you don't have that on, it's just going to measure like any other tape measure. If you have the plus sign on, it's going to actually create a guide. So I want to create a vertical line from this guide point. I'm going to create that out 44.5 inches. I want to create another one from here. I'm going to create that down 43 inches. Now I'll take the line tool, draw from this point here. I'm going to draw over 4 inches, and then 32 for our door, and then 8.5 for the rest of the width of this wall. I can go up here to close that off. Now guides, you can erase them. Just take the eraser and just erase them just by clicking on them. For the staircase, we're going to disregard that for right now because we're going to do a section just on how to create that staircase and how to create that opening. So for right now, it looks like we have everything measured out and drawn. Our next step is to extrude the walls using offset and push-pull. All right, let's bring this model to life. Since we have all the lines drawn to create the exterior walls, let's use offset and push-pull to extrude the exterior walls to see what the living room, dining room, and kitchen look like. Now, we don't need the preview anymore, so I'm just going to take the model space in SketchUp here and just drag my workspace over. Now remember, orbiting in 3D, it's really easy. Click on the middle mouse. We can orbit around our model. I want to get back into a standard view and show you also one of the standard views here. The standard views up top here, you have your top view, you have your ISO view, which is a nice quick ISO in whichever direction you're at. And the other ones are your front, back, left, and right, which we'll show a little bit later once we actually have some of the walls built up. Now, let's create those exterior walls. First, take the offset tool, and you want to offset any area of the face here. Let's click once to start our offset, and make sure you're not offsetting inside because our measurements are inside. We want this to offset outward. Let's go ahead and offset this 6 inches. So just type in 6, enter. Now you will have areas that overlap when you offset here and here. And it's best to use the eraser and erase those extra edges. Again, we like to keep a clean model, so erasing these is going to prevent us from having extra geometry that we don't need later on. For the foyer here, just take the line tool, draw from this point here, up in the green axis, and I want to infer to this edge here to get that point. I'll undo. If you're having a hard time inferring, remember you can press the left arrow key. I just pressed it, and that locks you in the green axis. Remember, right arrow locks you in the red, left in the green, and up and down lock you in the blue axis. And it's always a good way of inferring, making sure that you're exactly at the right distance. And I'll just close off that loop there. Also take the eraser, erase this edge and this edge. Our next step is the push-pull, but we have a couple different ceiling heights within the house. For example, the living room is at 116 inches, the dining room is at 95.5 inches, and then the kitchen is at 86.5 inches. So we could extrude all these up at one height and then push them down. But what I like to do is just take the line tool and let's just break the wall in those sections. That way they're cut the first time around. Let's create this break between the old wall here. And there is a break between here and here. So let's take the inferencing and just infer till we see that endpoint. And let's do the same here. Use inferencing. Inferencing is great. It'll save you a lot of time. We have all the lines that we need now. So let's go ahead and take push-pull. Let's start extruding some of these walls. So the first one is going to be this living room wall, which will extrude up. And notice as I'm extruding that the face is actually staying this blue color. This is actually a mistake. It's actually a glitch in SketchUp. I'm just going to undo. What you want when you extrude is you want the outside faces to be this color, this tan or white color. So let me just delete this face. Inside faces should be inside. And there's a glitch that happens sometimes in SketchUp where you extrude a wall and it brings up the inside faces the wrong way. And it's just a common error in SketchUp. It's not very critical if you're just modeling within SketchUp and you end up just applying textures. But if you're using other programs or exporting this into other programs, the direction of that face is very important. To fix it, just take the push-pull, and as you're push-pulling, or even before you start your push-pull, press Option. You can see that down here. It's also Control on a PC. I can click it off to see the difference. You can see that from push-pulling with Option clicked, it actually is creating a new face, so it's forcing SketchUp to move in the direction that we want. So let's push this up 116 inches. Forgot to draw this line here. Let's push up this wall. Again, Option or Control to extrude this up. This wall is at 80 inches. There's a small little soffit area here. Same thing here. Now I could have just double clicked on this to repeat our push-pull distance. I could type in 80, or we can just infer to that. For the dining room, let's push this up 95.5 inches. For here, let's push-pull this up. Push the wall up here. And last but not least, the kitchen is at 86.5 inches. Now, let's zoom extents to see our model. So you can see we have our different heights for our living room, our dining room, and then our kitchen. We forgot the foyer here. Let's go ahead and push that up. And you remember with the foyer here that we drew those lines there. So notice as you push-pull that, it actually leaves that indent or leaves that line there. And that's going to make it easier for us when we want to push-pull or extrude this to make the opening. And this we're going to do in the next chapter. Okay, so we have all the walls up, and now we can start creating some of the doors and openings. Let's go and begin in the living room, where we have a large window that's set right here. Now, if you remember in the drawings and dimensions that we had 21 inches from this left wall and 14 inches from the right wall, and then our window opening. What we'll do is take the tape measure, make sure option is checked on. Remember, that brings up that little plus sign. We're going to create a guide from this left edge. So we'll click once, move our cursor over, type in 21, enter. Orbit a little bit, zoom in a little bit closer. And from this side, same thing. In this case, we want 14 inches. So that gives us our left edge and our right edge. Now we need the top and bottom edge. For the bottom edge, click again on the bottom. In this case, we want to go up 39 inches. And from there, the window opening is 51 inches. So we're going to click from the guide that we just created and click up 51 inches. Our guides are set. So now we can use the rectangle tool. Remember, shortcut R. You'll see the little intersections. You'll see a little X right over that point. That lets us know that we're exactly at that intersection. And if you hover long enough, it's actually going to say intersection for you. Click once and click again to end your rectangle. Take push-pull, hover over the face, and now we want to push-pull this. So click once and push-pull this back. And how far back, might you ask? You'll feel it snap to that 6 inches. There are times you may accidentally push it and it gets, somewhere like that back there. You don't want that. That's an error. Just undo. When you push this, you're going to see and feel it sort of snap, and you might get this face. See how that face is flickering? You can actually see the line develop there. And also in the value control box down here. That lets us know that we are in fact at the end of this edge. I'll just undo. A lot of that is really dependent on how your camera angle is. Sometimes SketchUp has a hard time seeing where you are or what you're trying to infer to. So your position and your camera placement is really critical. You don't want to be too far over top of this where you can't really see where your point is. And you don't want to be so straight on that you're not really sure if you're on it or if you're past it. But once you click it, once you're on that face and you click, it's going to delete out the face. So if I orbit, you can see I can have my window cut out. Another way that I like to push-pull and to verify that I'm getting that cut out, so I'll just undo. When we push-pull and infer to that top edge, because we know that this is the top edge that we want to push back towards. That's going to guarantee that we have that opening. So for the door, what we want to do, instead of using the guides, we're actually going to use move copy and copy this line up 82 inches for our door height, and then push-pull the opening through. Now you may be thinking that you could take the line, draw up 82 inches, and then draw over, but that's a lot of steps. With move copy, although you don't think of it right away, it's actually going to save you a lot of time. What you need is just pre-select the line, take the move tool, and begin by moving the point. And notice that it's constraining or locking you into this point. That's because right now it thinks we're just moving it. What we want to do is use the copy feature in the move tool. So in SketchUp, to copy an object or to copy a line, it's actually the move tool and option. So you see as I click option, the little plus sign comes up and it's copying now that line work. We'll use copy again when we start creating the staircase as we copy each and every stair tread down. But in this case, we just want to copy this up. And because we inferred from this point here, we can infer up 82 inches to create our line for our opening. Now, just take push-pull this back, and we have our opening. Let's keep practicing. So we'll do this window here. There's actually a door and window here. So the door actually is 5 inches off the ground here. So this is where guides are going to be a lot easier than trying to use move copy. So let's draw a guide up 5 inches, and the door is 9 inches from the left side. Door is 32 inches wide. There's 18 inches between the door and the window. And then the window is 27.5 inches wide. The finished floor line for both is 82 inches from the bottom plane. And the window is 48 inches from the ground. So all our guides are set. Just use rectangle tool and just draw these out. Push-pull. Remember the wall thickness is the same along here. So if I push this out 6 inches, we can just double click and push that out. This window here, again, guides work great. Let's go from the right side, 16 inches. Then the window is 44, and it is 34 inches from the ground. This window's low. And from the 34, the window opening is 43 inches. So it's a little bit lower than our door height here and the window height here. We'll use the rectangle tool again and push-pull. So just double click that, create that opening. Our last window here is this wall, but notice I don't want this guide here because these guides are actually for those windows, not for this window here. We could take the eraser and just erase all the edges, but we did create a lot of guides and it's going to take a little bit of time to actually erase all those. There is a shortcut, and that is if you go to Edit, Delete Guides, it's just going to delete every guide in your model. Now we'll create some more guides. In this case, this window is 50 inches from this left side. It is 58 inches wide, and it comes up 52 inches, and the window is 39 inches tall. A lot of weird random window sizes, but remember, it's an old house. It's got its quirks. So we'll draw the rectangle here and push-pull. Last but not least, we have this opening here, and we also have the door opening here. The door opening here is 82 inches, so I'm going to use the move copy feature here. So rather than drawing a line up and trying to find 82 inches, we'll do as we did before. Select this line, press M, keyboard shortcut for move, click on the Option key, Control on a Mac. You don't have to hold that down. That's just a toggle on and off. So remember, you can just click that on or off. And let's copy this up 82 inches. Now we can push-pull this face because it created that separation there. I can push-pull this over to here. Now there is a weird little connection that happens there. And it's really the baseboard's a little off. We can actually just push this back. And let's just push this forward, just that we have a consistent measurement there. So for these two doors, I'm not going to worry about drawing the details of the powder room and the closet. I just want to draw the cutout for the door. So let's delete these guides. And let's start with 2 inches from the side here. For the next measurement, we measured from the edge here. So that's 26 inches from the edge, and then 47 inches from the edge. From this edge here, it's 5.5 inches. And then it's 40 inches for the double door. Perfect. Got my line straight on there. So let's go ahead and push-pull this up since this edge really isn't here. Push-pull this over like that. And again, 82 inches is our door height. Take a guide up 82. And we can draw our opening here and here. Now notice how this face doesn't erase. That's because that 5.5 inches is narrower than the actual wall here, because this wall is actually only 4 inches. Let's just undo. And let's fix this wall so that it's 4 inches. So I'm just going to push this in 2 inches. So now when we extrude this, it'll create that cutout. This wall here is only 4 inches as well. So let's go ahead and just fix that. Push this in 2 inches. And let's take the line tool and just finish off this powder room, just so that we have the model sort of finished here. And what we're going to do is just take this back from the edge, 6 feet, and then draw over in the red axes so we hit that wall there. Going to erase these inner edges here because we don't need those. To create the outer edges of this wall, we first need to pre-select the 2 lines. So take the line tool, hold down Shift, and select the 2 outer edges. Then click Offset. You want to offset from this point over to here. Take the push-pull then, and push-pull this up. Now it looks like that window might have a measurement that's off. So before we push-pull, let's hit Escape. Let's move this in 2 inches and see if that makes a difference. Yep, that looks just about right. Now this is also pushed back, so let's push this back to here. Let me undo that so you can see the other side. So this wall pushes back to here, and we now need a wall that connects these two. Let's take a line, draw this straight, and let's draw a guide. It's 4 inches to create our opening there. Now push-pull this up. See how it's bringing up the blue? Remember, press Option, extrude that up. It's a really narrow powder room there, so I'm not too worried about it. We're not going to show an opening into it, and we're not going to show the window that's there. In the end, we're just going to put a door over this. It's not really part of the visualization that we're trying to achieve. But we do at least want to get this relationship here where the end of the wall is and where this window starts. So that's all the doors and windows. Now we can move on and actually start to clean up some of the geometry and make the second floor so that we can start creating the floors and the ceiling and the staircase. Before we can start extruding some of the walls and windows for the second floor, we want to first clean up any stray geometry that we have in this model here on the first floor. Really simple, just take the eraser and just erase any of these extra lines that we don't need. Now don't be afraid if you accidentally erase an edge and you lose a face like this. Either undo or take the line tool and just trace back in the edge that you erased by accident. Just take your eraser, just clean up these edges. And I like to clean up these ones on the outside as well. Push this in a little bit. Remember the guides, you can edit, delete guides. Clean these up. We forgot the front door. Can't get into the house. Not a problem. The door is actually the same width as the foyer door. So I'll show you a little trick to duplicate that. Let's take the line tool and trace back in this edge here. See how it creates the face? It heals that surface to create the face. Take the select tool and just select it. Take the move copy. Make sure Control is checked or Option on a Mac, Control on a PC. Let's copy this in the green axes until we touch the wall here. It's essentially going to copy that line work for that door. Now we can just take push-pull this through, and now we have our outside door. This face, you don't want to use the eraser. Instead, you want to just take the select tool and delete the face. You could also erase the bottom edge here, which separates the ground line of the floor here. Eventually, when we create the floor, though, we're going to draw that line back in because the material is different here than it is in the hardwood floor here. Same with the hardwood floor in the dining room, and the kitchen has a different flooring texture. So now we have a clean model. You can go through and clean off this edge too. If you're really picky, you could clean off some of these bottom edges. Actually, don't worry too much about these. You're never going to see them. The reason why I clean off the top edges, though, is if you do any kind of rendering from above that's looking in at the model, so maybe like a axonometric like this, it's nice to have these clean edges so it feels like a shell. So I can just get rid of that one and that one. And if we see any others further along, we can clean those up as well. So now we can move on to the next chapter where we're going to show you how to organize the model. So here we're going to create groups and components. We're going to copy and paste floor slabs. We're going to do more openings and doorways for upstairs. We're going to show you some tips and techniques on how to use things like outliner and layers to control visibility of your model.